Hi everybody, thanks for attending this session. My name is David Atkins. I'm a Principal Solution Architect at Progress. And today we're going to talk about a number of tools and technologies to help you progress your digital experiences to the next level. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about Progress and our approach to digital experience. Now, you may not have heard of Progress, or you may not be as familiar with Progress as you probably are with some of the brand names that we have. So you may be surprised by some of the numbers here in terms of the breadth of influence that Progress's tools and technologies and products have. There's over 3 million developers using development tools from Progress. There's over 6 million business users of business applications that were written and run on Progress technologies. And there's hundreds of millions of people on a daily basis whose lives are impacted by those different business applications or different websites or different point of sale applications around the world. And it's always been Progress's core mission to be a trusted provider of the tools to develop high-impact business applications and digital experiences. And an important part of our approach is that we take a very holistic approach, a holistic understanding of what digital experience is and what it means. And that's both in terms of who that digital experience is for, whether it's a customer, an employee, a partner. And when you talk about employees, even things like analysts, the analyst experience, things like that. But also the breadth of technology that has to all align and has to all be in place in order for those compelling digital experiences to happen. You have to have a compelling UI layer with the adaptive experience. Digital experiences have to adapt to how people want to interact with your organization and with your business data and your business systems. Underlying that, you have to have a business logic layer, a service cloud. Could be content management, could be business rules management, could be serverless cloud services. Underlying that, you have to be able to connect that logic to the data, the systems of record, the IoT sources, big data warehouses, file-based data. And all of this has to be governed and managed through operational assurance applications. So we're not going to look at all of this today, but we're going to touch on quite a few things here. And I'm going to start working through. Now, as I mentioned before, you might actually recognize some of these brand names more so than Progress itself. I would be surprised if there's anyone on the call that isn't using some technology from Progress in your organization, whether you directly or indirectly through it being embedded in some other tool or application that you're using. But let's start talking through some of these. We'll go from the top down. So talking about the UI development, Progress acquired a company called Telerik 5 or 6 years ago, and Telerik have a brand called Devcraft, which is incredibly popular in the Microsoft community. It is the ultimate bundle of UI components, whether you're doing desktop development, web, or mobile. And there's many components in here. They're very rich components with a lot of functionality that can save you a ton of time versus crafting your own controls from basic jQuery controls and things like that. As you can see here, we've got broad coverage of different technologies. One of the really hot ones right now is obviously Blazor, those people wanting to do web app development in C#. But we've also got Kendo UI controls for web development using a variety of other web frameworks. And there's supporting and complementary tools as well. Test Studio is a great tool for automating tests of your UIs, web mobile UIs. Another component that you may well have heard of from the .NET community is Sitefinity. Sitefinity is an award-winning digital experience platform. It's used for a variety of use cases, certainly websites, but also internal, external portals, obviously lots of customer engagement type websites, marketing-centric websites, but also you can use it as a headless CMS when you want to serve up content to other applications or mobile apps. And of course, it can certainly drive e-commerce. That's a very common use case as well. And Sitefinity, it's very good. It can support multilingual, multi-site, omni-channel. It's got really good sort of mobile capabilities. Unparalleled ease of use for digital marketers. Digital marketers can self-service a lot more of their own needs without having to go to IT. But when IT do get involved, they love working with Sitefinity as well because of the SDKs, because of the way it's architected. It's very easily extensible by developers, all of which just gets you to market faster. It gets your site up and running better. And as we'll see, you can personalize to optimize the customer journey as well. Now, some of the underlying capabilities, it's built on the .NET framework and MVC. There's a lot of APIs and SDKs to interact with Sitefinity. We have just created a new rendering engine based on .NET Core, which allows you to use .NET Core View components. And throughout, we've tried to follow Microsoft development best practices, so you can continue to use the tools that you like to use and the approaches that you like to use. And from deployment, you've got more flexibility. You can deploy as a .NET web application in your own servers, your own VMs, or you can actually use the Sitefinity Cloud and use the built-in CI/CD pipelines in our Sitefinity Cloud using Azure DevOps to deploy into our cloud environment as well. Now, complementing the core content management system is our customer journey analytics engine called Sitefinity Insight. And that can allow you to build much more directed and purposeful digital experiences. You can have more data-driven marketing strategies and really optimize that whole experience for the customers, which ultimately drives more conversions and increases your revenue. Some key use cases for Sitefinity Insight are the ability to track data about customer interactions across many different channels. And once you've collected that data, you can start to analyze those customers, do that audience intelligence, start to put them in persona buckets or score them against lead scores based on their activity. And that allows you to do persona-based personalization or personalize against people in a certain category on a lead score. All of which really allows you to do better marketing, more targeted marketing. And once you've started to do that personalization, you can start to compare how the website behaves for different subsets that you're marketing to in different ways, which allows the engine to do some machine learning and figure out, what are the recommendations for the best types of changes to make, best campaigns to run, best content to show to certain types of users to maximize the probabilities of the conversions you're after. So you can develop and you can run powerful digital experiences with Sitefinity and Sitefinity Insight. You can also do that without the complexity of having to build and maintain the infrastructure. And that's with Sitefinity Cloud. Sitefinity Cloud uses Azure, uses the infrastructure module to manage the deployment of the different environments. It also uses the management portal to give you the dashboards, a repository, and all the CI/CD pipelines needed to automate promotion of assets from different environments. So you do your on-site local development. You can push that into a CI/CD pipeline that'll deploy it to staging. You do your testing. If it passes everything, it can go off into production, and then it'll sync back changes. So it's a really excellent solution, probably one you've heard of for content management, really compelling customer and internal user digital experiences through websites. Now, another aspect of compelling digital experience is, the logic of a web experience has to work right. Say I'm applying for a loan or a policy or applying for a health coverage or some kind of health program, maybe even applying to get a vaccine appointment. There's a lot of eligibility rules in there. They change very dynamically. That's a good use case for using business rules to move volatile logic out of code into a model-driven environment. You can increase the transparency of those decisions by moving it into that type of environment as well. That can all enable faster, safer changes versus updating similar logic in application code. And most importantly, perhaps, it can empower the business analysts, the subject matter experts that understand that rule logic, to maintain that logic themselves directly. And the way that works with our Progress Corticon business rules engine is you model those business rules. You deploy them, they become accessible as executable decision services from your applications and processes. And at that point, when they're run, they can access external data, be it from a database, a SaaS application, even a REST API. And this is cyclic because, as I say, this is volatile logic. This is often coming back to be changed. These eligibility type rules or pricing, whatever it is, promotions change constantly. And that's why it's important to have this integrity check on the rule modeling. So when you make a change, have you introduced any ambiguities? Have you introduced any gaps in the coverage? And we try to make this very accessible to subject matter experts by using a visual abstraction of the overall decision. You can break it down into steps and have a workflow between them. And each one of these steps would use a very familiar spreadsheet-like rule modeling metaphor that any business analyst is going to be able to pick up very quickly. And the way to interpret this, for instance, is each column is a business rule. The top half are the conditions that have to be true for the actions in the bottom half to be taken. So if the type of device is a laptop, the type of repair is a motherboard or a video card, we're going to assign the skill level required to be 4. And then there's a natural language description of that that's correlated with it. You can see here. And those types of rules, you can deploy those to a traditional kind of app server type target. And we've been able to do that for many years, in fact, 20 years. This is a 20-year-old product, still innovating, but 20 years old. And that can typically be IIS or Tomcat as the app server environment, and then that's available for an application to call as a REST or a SOAP service. Recent innovation last year was to introduce quarter-conf for JavaScript, which gives us another option to deploy those rules as a totally self-contained JavaScript rule bundle. And that gives us a lot of really great flexibility in terms of how we deploy. We can deploy to the edge, IoT devices, client-side evaluation in web or mobile applications, self-contained node services. But a really exciting area is serverless functions. And whether it be Azure or AWS Lambda, whatever it is, being able to deploy these business rules into that environment gives you that elastic scalability, that fault tolerance, the ability to orchestrate them into composite applications in a fully cloud-native way. That's really exciting. But all of this is no good if it can't get the data it needs. On the data channel, there's a lot of challenges to data integration recently. A lot of data now is hiding behind RESTful APIs. We have a solution called Autonomous REST Connector that gives you a SQL view of a REST API. And it does it autonomously. It will query that REST API, look at the JSON that comes back, normalize it, create a relational schema from it, and provide that to any of your traditional SQL clients, be it SQL Server reporting services, Power BI, or any other BI tools. They could continue to, those analysts can continue to use SQL that they're very familiar with, but the data that they're querying can ultimately be coming from a REST API. And there's obviously a lot of reasons here why you might want to put your data behind a REST API. Another challenge is that there's more and more cloud applications being used. I think this is particularly true now with COVID, because a lot of organizations with distributed home working are using cloud services more to avoid a lot of sensitive business data being stored on laptops. We're trying to reduce that dependency and move more information into the cloud. And we do have a lot of drivers that will give access to that type of information. So for instance, our Data Direct Connect drivers, the one for SQL Server, not only supports SQL queries against SQL Server, but it supports Azure SQL, supports big data clusters, Azure Synapse, analytics platform. And our Dynamics 365 driver gives you SQL access to data in any of these modules listed here of Dynamics 365. So, we've got some good solutions to that problem. Another problem that's increasing and another challenge to data and open analytics is the fact that more and more you have to integrate between the cloud and on-prem. And there's really two solutions there. You've got on-prem apps that need access to data in the cloud. In this case, we've got a browser user trying to access a Power BI dashboard. We've got an Excel user, a Tableau user, and Cognos user. So they want to access the same data from a cloud ISV application. Our hybrid data pipeline application can provide that access. It can provide the OData, the JDBC, and the ODBC view of that same data source that different types of consumers want to consume. It also provides a secure way of bridging the cloud on-prem divide as well. And flipping it the other way around, you have cloud applications that need to consume on-prem data sometimes. Now, when that happens, a lot of cloud applications like Dynamics 365 and Salesforce expect that data to be presented in a certain way. OData is the most common way. And that's another thing that hybrid data pipeline can do. It can solve the cloud on-prem secure connection problem, and it can expose that OData representation of any data source. And this final challenge is really talking about file-based data integration. And this doesn't sound like a new thing. FTP's been around forever. But what's changed is the level of governance and data privacy regulations that are governing that the secure use of all of that data. And we have a really good solution for secure managed file transfer in Progress Move It. Now, there's three components to this. There's Move It Transfer, which is a central repository and a variety of clients to transfer securely files to and from that repository. has an immutable audit trail of exactly who's touched and moved what data where. But typically, this is consolidating a lot of different FTP servers into a single, very modern, secure transfer capability. It allows you to comply with these types of regulations. Move It Cloud is a fully managed SaaS service offering the same capabilities as Move It Transfer. And then Move It Automation is essentially an orchestration engine. It's a way to centralize all of the scripts that you may have distributed around your organization today, owned and managed by different people, into a single place, so that you not only have a way of securely getting data in and out of the organization with Move It Transfer, but once it's in the organization, you've got a central place to govern the scripts that move it around within the organization. That allows you to know where the data is for compliance with standards like GDPR and that type of thing. And of course, all of these different moving parts that we've talked about, and many others that are involved in presenting compelling digital experiences, they all have to be working. The weakest link is going to limit that digital experience. So you need to have operational assurance. And Progress has a great solution called WhatsUp Gold that can provide you that capability. It can be deployed on-prem or in the cloud, and it's a great network monitoring application. It doesn't rely upon deploying agents on client machines. It'll discover anything with an IP address, basically. Auto discovers the topology of all the devices, and it really provides you a single place to go to get all the information about the network infrastructure, the servers running on that infrastructure, and the applications running on those servers. It uses layer 2 discovery to discover all the devices on the network, which means it also discovers the dependencies between them. This is great because we don't send out like alert storms. If we see a bunch of alerts and we know the dependencies and we know that 100 of them are dependent upon one other device's error, we're not going to flood you with meaningless alerts. We also have a very wide library of monitors to monitor different types of network devices, different types of servers, virtual machines, and applications as well. And that's an extensible library of monitors as well that can monitor all types of different things, including website behavior with synthetic transactions and email monitoring. And those they don't just give you visibility into what's going on, they give you the ability to set the early warning sign alerts. And those alerts can be sent out as notifications through email, through Slack, phone, SMS, but they can also trigger things like scripted remedial actions to take place. So sometimes you don't need to know about it. You can just have the system automatically expand the size of a cluster or whatever it is that needs to take place to avoid a problem occurring before the digital experience is impacted. And along with that, you have a comprehensive capability to build your own reports. There's some canned reports out of there. And also it's customizable dashboards for complete visibility on everything that's going on, all of which can be scheduled and automated as needed. So hopefully that gives you a flavor of many different tools and technologies that Progress brings to bear that can help you in different ways deliver those really compelling digital experiences through this holistic approach. Thank you very much for your time today. I hope you found this useful.